Hello and welcome to a quick look at the Lavazza Modo Mio MilkEasy Frother. Rolls right off the tongue. That's this device right here. And today I'm going to be pitting it up against what's been my go-to milk frother for quite a while, the Aeroccino4 Milk Frother. This has dropped in price. It can now be had for about £75 off Nespresso's website. When it first came out, I believe it was around £125 when it first came out, or around that price. But I wanted to see if there's anything that can compete against it. Now, straight off the bat, I will say that the Nespresso seems to have more functions. If we take a look at the base, the Nespresso, you can have cold milk froth, you can have just hot milk, or you can have level 1 and level 2 froth, depending on how much you want. If we bring in the Lavazza, where all the functions are actually within tapping the button here. If you tap the button once, you get foam in your milk. If you tap it twice, you get hot milk. If you tap it 3 times, you get cold milk foam. So you don't actually have a level of foam in this. If you want hot foam, you just get hot foam. You don't, with an Nespresso, you get medium or high level of foam. So that's a little bit of an advantage that the Nespresso has off the bat. But I will say one thing, if you take a look at them both side by side, I'll be using them both for the same amount of time in order to prepare for this review. And even though I've washed them both in the exact same way, because this initially, I like the look of this more, but because it is such reflective material, the steel that they use on here, it can, unless you, once you finish washing it, really go at it with a damp cloth, like especially in between these grooves, it's really difficult to get it looking clean and like new again. Whereas with the Lavazza, you can rinse it off. That's one of the few criticisms I have. I also like the fact that it has a handle, easier to grip than holding onto this. And this material is pretty slippery. Like even holding it here, I feel very unconfident unless I use my other hand as well to support it, that this isn't going to slip out of my hand, whereas this seems definitely a lot more manageable. So what I'm going to do first is I am going to bring in whole milk, which is what the Nespresso website suggests. Okay, if we take a look now in the Lavazza, we can see there's a line for milk and one for foam. The foam one's lower down. Do not overflow these lines because you'll eventually get foam just pouring out of the whole thing. And then in the Nespresso, you get a line for milk and for foam as well. Now with the Nespresso, this actually comes out and goes back in. So it snaps onto this little circular magnet down here. And you can get other ones of these as well. There's essentially 2 of these you can get. The other one doesn't have this around it. It's just a solid piece of steel that goes around. And that's if you don't want any foam. Whereas with the Lavazza, you essentially only get this. And it suggests that you put this in even if you don't want foam. Let's start off with the Lavazza and let's see how much foam that gives us. Let's start with the Lavazza preparation. We'll start them both at the same time and we'll see which one is quicker and how much foam we get from each machine. Let's go ahead and let's start these both up next to each other at the same time. We'll see which one finishes first and we'll also have a quick look and see how much foam each one produces. You get your lovely beep from the Lavazza again. The Lavazza looks like it's been a lot more aggressive, but that's probably because of where the position is for the actual head of the frother. But let's see which one finishes first. Now in terms of noise, the Lavazza is definitely the louder of the 2. I can hear that whirling a lot more, whereas the Nespresso, you can't really ever tell whether it's on or not. The Lavazza, you can definitely tell because you can hear it. You can hear it from a good 6 to 10 feet away even. Okay, so the Nespresso was done about 10 seconds earlier. This is the Nespresso. Let's have a look. There is plenty of foam in this. Foam line is from about there. It's literally, yep. The foam in this, it's a little bit sloppy to be fair, but it's the majority. From there onwards, it's foam. Okay, and this is the Lavazza. Okay, so the foam milk line, I know the camera won't be able to pick it up because it's also subtle, but it's just over here on the Nespresso. And on the Lavazza, it's about here. So it looks like the Lavazza has produced more foam. But if we take a look at the texture of the foam, I would say the Lavazza's foam feels definitely more dense, but the foam from the Nespresso feels a lot more light and fluffier. They've both done a fairly good job, to be honest with you. Let's do a little taste test. The foam from the Lavazza, somebody else had told me this before and I didn't really understand what they meant, but the foam from the Lavazza definitely tastes a little bit on the burnt side, and it's definitely not as fluffy and light. The foam is more dense. So if that's what you're going for, I would say if you want a dense foam, I would say go for the Lavazza, otherwise the Nespresso all the way. For me, I like a light fluffy foam, so I would say the Nespresso for me. But I mean, at the end of the day, the price difference now is only about 15, 20 pounds between these two. And for that reason, I would say go with the Nespresso because you get a longer warranty as well. I believe it was when I purchased mine 2 years, for the Nespresso Lavazza's 1 year. But I would say it's a more pleasant tasting foam, and it's also a light, more fluffy foam. That's really it. I mean, this is going to be a quick video because there's not really much else to say about this. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you have either of these. Let me know if you've had the same issues with the Lavazza and the milk tasting slightly on the burnt side. And if you've had the Nespresso one, I mean, the one thing I'll say is this Nespresso, this one has worked really well for a while for me. This one has worked for a while without any issues. However, the previous model of this, that one I had to replace. So I had a unit which came with that built into it on the side. And luckily my unit had a 3-year warranty and that was part of it. But I had to replace that 3 times in a 3-year period. This I haven't had any issues with. When it finally does die, I will let you know and update this video. I also do think a few other things to consider actually, is if we take a look at the base of these two, the Nespresso, I do like that it has more functions, but the base takes up a lot more space. It's literally, if your kitchen space is tight, then the Nespresso is going to take up a lot more space. But in terms of, you know, that beeping is very, very annoying. Even when you turn the machine on, when you press it, it makes another beep. If you want just hot milk, you press it twice. That beep is very high pitched. There's no reason for it to be that loud. People are never going to be that far away from it. So I would say if you are tempted by the Lavazza, get it somewhere like Amazon, where if you have an issue with it or you don't like it, you can return it pretty easily. So make sure the place has good returns policy. So I personally would go for the Nespresso. Maybe a few years back when the price difference was almost, the Lavazza was almost half, then I would say it's worth considering the Lavazza. But for me right now, the Nespresso is still king, and personally I won't be swapping. But if you do have the Lavazza and you like it, sound off in the comments below, let us know what you like about it. And at the end of the day, you can't really go wrong with either machine. It's more what your taste preference is. The Nespresso store do actually do something that's really good. They all have a counter where you can go in and you can try their coffees. So why not pop in there, grab a coffee from them, it's on the house, and they will, you can ask them to use this milk frother, and then that way you can see what the texture of the milk is and see if you like it. And I don't think Lavazza, I've never seen Lavazza do anything similar, but you could always get it from somewhere like Amazon, try it out. And if you don't like it, if you prefer the Nespresso one, just send it back. But overall for me, the Nespresso is still king, and it still does the job better than anything else in this price range. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, hit that dislike button twice. Thank you.